Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Animal Kingdom. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we're picking up, obviously, in the aftermath of a lot of stuff for everyone's kind of dealing with their own thing. First and foremost, you've got Craig dealing with the fact is that, Ren is still, doing her business out of the house, and a dude, ZZ shows up and he's like, no, get the hell out of here, and he kind of gets pissed at Ren because it's like, you said that other person was like a one-off, you're still doing this, and for him it's still the thing of like, don't do this at our house. But then when you actually hear his explanation later on, I'm sure part of it was brought about because of Darren saying like, yeah, that DEA agent is looking for Adrian, which I'm like, I guess I didn't really catch, I don't know if that's Darren lying about that conversation, because the DEA made it seem like, I know, I'm going to try and find Adrian, but it's like, right, I didn't pay attention about your family now I am going to. I took, once again, maybe that is the whole point, I'm going to get Adrian because I doubly want to take your family down, but and once again, that could just me being stupid, but I feel like that was Darren lying to Craig to make it seem like, he's after Adrian, which Adrian could still take our family down, but not nearly as much as, that dude's coming after us directly. Before, we were just kind of a side project of, getting Adrian to turn against us, but that's about it. I guess either way you spin it, it's still that, because Adrian could be the downfall of them, so granted, luckily you don't have Smurf around to be like, Adrian needs to get popped like she was before. Granted, that could still always turn out to be a Pope thing. It could always be a Jay thing. Jay's kind of sadly had to handle things on his own, like the whole Mia thing. That's always, I'm still, regardless of anything, I'm still always sad that things ended the way they did with Mia. I wish things could have worked out, because I think they actually gelled well together. But when you actually look in retrospect, none of Jay's relationships end well. And maybe you could make the argument that's kind of a sad byproduct of the family, because it's just his mom's circumstances, and then Smurf, especially getting a look at her past and who she was and who she is and was still. But it's back then, even in her older age, it just seemed like settling down isn't always the easiest thing for this family. It's kind of what I think. Baz is the closest who ever had that, but even then, that was a messy situation in its own right. So that technically, that you can't even count that. But it's I guess now you could say Craig maybe it's the closest to just settling down. So it's that family's all kinds of messed up. So relationships aren't the easiest thing when it comes to that family. Because the reason I also bring it up is because Natalie, Nikki, yeah, have you talked to Nikki? Not in a while. She married a Marine and everything. I'm like, cool. That's interesting. Also it's interesting that would bring, because I don't think she's been brought up since the character left the show, in the sense of and I'm trying to remember. I want to say season 2. It might have been 3, but I want to say it was season 2 was the last time we saw Nikki. I'm blanking on a circumstance, because I know she got shot in the leg. Well, no, she shot herself in the leg. There was that whole thing. Plus, didn't she OD at one point in time? I think shooting herself in the leg and then them basically dumping her in front of a hospital was what led to because I remember her dad's conversation was Jay, you're never being around my daughter again. Never come around her again. I think that's the last time she was in the show. I believe that shooting herself in the leg accidentally was it. I know she definitely did OD at one point in time. I don't remember which one happened first. I want to say the shooting herself in the leg thing happened last, but regardless, it was just kind of interesting for them to kind of bring that up. But, aside from that, once again, circling back to Craig, his reasoning for it, though, I thought was interesting, though. He was telling Ren, right, a boy can survive, basically a boy can grow up with his father in the joint. It's yeah, it'll suck, but I can deal with me going to jail. A boy can't survive with his mom in jail, so I don't want you to get busted. You getting busted is a completely different story. And Ren was almost kind of oh, that's actually really sweet and caring that you don't care what happened, but it's more so you want me to be around for our child. Which, to be fair, of course, Craig's going to have that perspective. His mom was in his life, his dad wasn't. So, of course he's going to have that perspective on things, despite everything, once again, every one of them having a very complicated relationship with Smurf, it still doesn't change the fact that, regardless of all of that, that was still your mom. So, granted, it also seems out of anyone, Pope is taking it the hardest because, he's always been a little off, but I think his mom always was kind of his center, that light leading you home. Like, she was always like that foundation for him. So now that she's gone, he's definitely way more off the rock. Once again, Pope has always been Pope. He's always been weird. He's been a little off. But I feel like this is the most, like, out there he's been in a while. We see it with his childhood of, like, it seemed like he found some sort of balance growing up. I guess, like, having siblings and everything kind of, Julia, I guess, just wasn't enough back then. But now, like, having everybody, like, he found something that kind of filled that void a little bit. But now that Smurf's gone, like, Pope is kind of, like, falling apart to a certain extent. He even asked that interesting question to, like, Jay. It's like, what'd you do after your mom died? And it was like, I came here. And it's like, no, he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I don't know. Which is, like, sad because, like, that was, like, they've never, like, no one in that, well, at least Jay and Pope have never really had an honest conversation. Like, it's come up a little bit about the whole Julia thing, but they've never really, really talked about it. It's like, that was your sister. That was his mom. Like, you guys were twins. Like, the fact of the matter is that makes that loss, like, hit even hard, but it never, at least I don't remember, like, it ever just being like him, like, because him and Jay should be closer than what they are, but it's never really been the tightest relationship, But it was just interesting and sad to know, like, right, like, this is the only time you ever really talk about Julia is like, oh, so how did Jay handle losing his mom? And we see, like, Jay just kind of found with Julia being the way she was, like, I think for Jay, it's just kind of like the loss. It sucked. But because I think even looking at those photos of his mom, it's like he's never really taken time to think about losing his mom because I think he's only known one side of his mom. And I think looking at those pictures, seeing his mom like that, it's like, right, this is my mom before, like, things fell apart to a certain extent. So I think that's probably got him thinking about it. Obviously, Pope is thinking a lot about the past now that his mom's going. I think a lot of that stuff of, like, I think maybe that's more so what they're trying to get at is the perspective of all this flashback stuff is mainly Pope's perspective on things. Not necessarily. It is Smurf stuff, but I think it's more so coming up because now that she's gone, Pope's thinking a lot about the past. Because it is interesting that the moments they do pick up with are like her and like Julia and Pope being a little bit old enough to remember a lot of that stuff. So that's where it definitely seems like it's leaning into more like us getting like some of the stuff with Smurf, a younger Smurf, but also I think Pope kind of trying to deal with a lot of his, feelings about the whole circumstance. So, but I'm kind of all over the place. I do apologize, but kind of finishing up with Craig, I think it's interesting, like, but he's asking Rin to not just do her business at the house, but also to quit. And she's like, what else am I supposed to do? He's like, I don't know, but I got you. But for her, it's like, no, I can take care of myself. Because I think for her, it's like, I don't want to be in a situation where I need to rely on you. Like, I've taken care of myself long before you were in my life. I don't need you to take care of me like I'm some child. Like, but it's like, it comes from a place of like him trying to like, hey, like, I just want to take care of you. I want to take care of our family. I want our family. Like, if anything falls out, it needs to fall out on me. I don't want it to fall out on you. Our son's going to need his mom around, So it's going to be interesting to see if this changes Rin's perspective on anything going forward. Doesn't seem like it, but there could always be a shift coming. And then you have Darren. So when he kind of got drunk with surfing because Craig was like, yeah, sure. So I don't know if that's like, he hooked up with those. I mean, he was on the beach. So either that was like that night or a different, maybe there was some space in between this and that last episode when him and Craig were hanging out at night after he got drunk. So he's kind of shacked up with a married couple. And that same married couple came and hit him up later on. And they're, and it almost seemed like Darren was kind of almost like sad when he looked at them together. It's like, right, they're a married couple. It's just kind of like, right, their happiness is kind of disgusting because it's just kind of like, I mean, to be fair, he's very like in a self-hating mood right now. Darren kind of always has. He's had a lot of self-hatred in many different facets of, I use that word a lot, facet, but a lot of regards essentially. But when the time comes, it's like, ooh, time for the threesome. And Darren's like, no, you're going to watch. He's like, what? It's like, no, you're just going to watch. And he's getting ready. And it's like, the dude's like, no, let's go. And his husband's like, nah, I'm gonna stay. And it's just like, because it's one thing when we're both participating, it's like, yeah, it's hot, but it's like, no, like now it loses like that thing of like, no, I'm just watching. I'm not here to be like, let's face it, I'm not here to be cucked. I'm not here to watch you. It's like, no, like us banging, having fun, that's cool. Like, because it's like, ooh, because yes, but it's between them, and Darren's like the third party. But them just being together, it's almost like, no, this isn't what we signed up for. And for his husband to be like, no, I'm gonna stay. It's just kind of like, oh, you're enjoying this. Which afterwards he has his regrets, but Darren's like, get out. Like, because it's like, you could, like, on whether Darren will admit it or not, on some small level, he did that just because it's almost like he wanted to break their happiness up. Because it's like, nah, I don't get to be the person I care about. I lost what I had to in order to protect what I have, which, what was the point of that? I should have just gone off and been happy, but like, stupid me, staying behind for my brothers and my nephew and my freaking mom who's now gone. Like, it's all... So... Once again, maybe it is a thing of they're all taking Smurf's death. Like, Pope is the one hitting him the hardest, but maybe in some small way, Smurf's death is hitting all of them. Just, Jay's the one trying to take it the most in stride, just being like, no, this is an opportunity for me to lead. Like, Smurf was like prepping him to like take over anyway, but I mean, he kind of more so took the reins himself, But it's just interesting, that whole personal, like, Darren just doing, like, I do believe it is just his middle finger to, like, them being happy. And I think on some level he recognizes that, but it's just kind of like, that, it was just to spite that dude, because it's like, it's almost basically like a fuck you for being happy. Like, I don't get to be happy, just like my entire life is kind of shit right now, so fuck you. That's how I interpreted that. But, yeah. Obviously, a big crux of this episode is obviously them doing the job for Pete, getting the bikes ready. And I thought it was really interesting because even Darren picked up on it when Pope was like, yeah, I sold the car. It was between this, and this. And I'm like, Darren was like, why'd you go into details like that? Like, it wasn't, like, he's once again getting a little oddballish. And the fact is he focused on those details. I'm like, yeah, it was between this and this. Like, why did you have to go into such details about it? And even Darren being like, are you okay? And Pope's like, yeah. Later on, he's watching, like, that Hulk, like, eat that, and it's a whole, like, cycle of, like, oh, yeah, like, things die, eat to survive, like, eat other stuff to survive. It's kind of like, it's survival of the fittest, kind of, like, that's just kind of, the whole circle of life thing, which I'm wondering, is that, like, thinking back on that now, like, is Pope looking at it being like, that's kind of what happened with Smurf, like, Smurf dying, it's like, she dies so that we can eat and survive. And maybe on some level, once again, it's got him thinking about a lot more about the past than I think he ever really did it, before. So, obviously, like, I love the whole thing. You could definitely tell that Craig wasn't, obviously these bikes is like, right, he's like, can't we just use our dirt bikes? It's like, not let you want to be carrying them up those hills and stuff. So, Craig's having to get used to, even to the point, like, when they're just, like, you could tell at the beginning, like, Craig's kind of struggling a little bit. But going after that plane, I guess I didn't remember Pete saying, like, oh, it was definitely drugs. Maybe because I don't remember that, because I got so caught up in Jay being like, oh, it's money, that I'm like, okay, cool. I guess I just took that as fact, because I didn't remember Pete, explicitly saying, like, it was drugs. He probably did, I just didn't remember that. And so, like, I'm like Pope, Darren and Craig, I bought into the lie about the money, which as an audience member I shouldn't have. Not unless they kept that super vague, so Jay told the lie, but maybe even the audience. Like I said, I don't remember. I feel like maybe he was beating around the bush saying it was drugs instead of money, but it is a thing of, like, the moment's like, wait, did you think we wouldn't find out that it was, like, coke and not money? And it's like, yeah, but he figured, like, by then, like, he figured there would be, like, no minimum risk. Granted, he still got shot at because either Pete's info wasn't, because I think money sitting by is different from coke, because it's like they were supposed to have a day, but that didn't happen. So I'm like, I guess maybe as a cartel or whatever, you jump on that a lot quicker than you would maybe, like, money. But I even, once again, Darren bringing up the points I brought up last episode. It's a cartel. Like, I don't want to end up with my head, like, sliced off. But, like, Craig trying to, it's like, they're businessmen and stuff like that. He's like, really? Because he's trying to say, like, cartels aren't what you think they are, which I'm like, that's bull. Like, he's trying to say, like, if there's a cartel in this area, it's like, it's this side of town. Like, there's no way it's like a legit cartel. I'm like, don't get it twisted. Like, cartel is a cartel. Like, I don't think there's, like, I don't think it's the like fantasized note, like not fantasized notion. He thinks it's more like a like he feels like cartels are like a corporation, which they are, but that doesn't mean these corporations still, I mean, they've been kind of like semi-connected with, like, that's been a thing somewhat in the show, like cartels, but they've never been at odds with the have they? I'm trying to remember if that whole situation ever turned against them. I feel like there was some animosity back then with that whole situation, but I'm like, because I'm blanking on her name, but Baz's baby mama, the woman he was having an affair with. Like, once again, it's been so damn long since I've seen her earlier seasons that I'm blanking on that. Because I remember she died, like, Mia kills her at the end of, like, season 3. I remember that. Once again, ironic. That whole Mia thing, I still can't let that go. I'm like, oh man, I wish she could have made it. I wish her and Jay could have made it. But once again, it kind of fits the role of, like, yeah, the only thing that survives is his family. Ironic, considering, like, Baz got killed by Smurf. Mia, but Smurf, like, put the hit out on him. Tangents and all that aside, I'm going to go on that huge tangent. But, regardless, getting back to what I was bringing up, like, the cartel angle, I was just like, that's a bad move, because not only did you didn't steal money from him and you stole drugs, it's not like it would matter. Either one is the type of thing that will get you killed, and I'm like, they're going to find you. Some shape or form, they're going to find you, and you're going to have another war, like, to deal with. You literally just had a war with the cousins, which maybe there's going to be some crossover there, like, hey, the cartel and somehow, like, the one cousin that's still alive, maybe he'll let it be, but it's like, right, like, others don't know that Pope let him live, which Pope made that decision. Darren let the whole Adrian thing happen, so I don't know, like, everyone's got their, like, little secrets and a little, like, oh, I'm just going to keep this to myself thing that could ultimately come back and backfire and cause issue for the whole thing. I mean, I guess you could make the argument technically Pope has two things, because the whole Angela thing could come back to bite them in the ass in some shape or form too, like, I don't know. Once again, depending if they do anything with that. But yeah, luckily they were able to get away. I even love at the end Darren being like, not Craig being like, oh man, I actually like this bike. So they got away with it. At least one of the dudes, because Pope took one of them out. The other one's still alive. So, we'll see. Once again, those one survivors could be the end-all be-all for you. But obviously, Darren and Craig not being okay with what Jay did, lying to them. Also finding out, oh, cool, we know about that. Now they know about the bowling alley and the laundromat and the condo. It's like, cool. You stole from us. No, I stole from Smurf. It's the same thing, Jay. Obviously, Darren's not okay with it. Neither is Craig, but Craig's like, at the very least, we'll get a lot of money from this. So, Pope isn't chastising him as much, because he's kind of off in his own little world at the time. So, I mean, held to the point, like, he has to look back through the footage to see what was going on. And then, like, obviously, he trailed some of his mom into, like, her old room. And then basically laying down with her ashes at the end, which is like, once again, Pope is not handling this well. And none of his siblings are really noticing. Not even Jay is really noticing, like, what he's really going through. Like, how much of an impact this is hurting him. Because, like I said, everyone else is, like, maybe on a deeper level, like I said, to some small extent, it's affecting all the others. But they're not showing it the way Pope is. Obviously, going into the past, you have Smurf, like, trying to, like, being like, yeah, I got it, I got this job offer, like, I'm looking for a job, and it's like, oh, like, you can tell Pam was immediately like, something's up. But that's the thing too of, like Smurf is just legitimately out of control, like, and I think that it's a parallel they're trying to draw, like, her being out of control right now after everything with Colin and raising the kids, but also, like, trying to feel some emptiness inside of her, the same way Pope is kind of trying to do right now. So maybe that's the parallel they're really trying to drive home. But she goes to Manny and Jake, which Jake's like, oh, married and everything. It's like, oh, that's hunky-dory, which you also remember, like, you're like, well, at some point, you two are going to shack up again, because, like, Jake's Craig's dad, right? I believe? Or is he Darren's? I always forget which one he is, because, So at least there's one more. There's a kid that pops out because you two shack up. So that's still obviously on the horizon. So obviously, you know, and obviously they never like officially like get together. So it's just kind of like a whatever thing between them. So, but she plans on robbing Marcus, and it kind of goes off. I mean, granted, it's not the smoothest operation because there was another maid, but overall, it worked out well. I thought it was interesting where she was basically like, let me get the cash. I'm wondering, cause I guess she figured if she waited for any of that other money, it'd be an issue because she kind of needs the money right now. So she took the money and is like, right, you'll definitely get more than $6,000 for like all of this stuff. So I'll just take the money and I'll take the gun because I've earned this. It's like, right, he tried to put it in my face. Like, it's just the biggest middle finger to Mark. I mean, to be fair, it's to stick it to him because of the way he tried to like threaten her. And it's like, yo, like, you're nothing but a punk to me. So like she just wanted to kind of put him in his place by not only robbing him but also taking his gun just because it's meant to be a trophy. But then later on, Pam finds out of it, like, oh, my friend got robbed, and she gets pissed because, you know, it's like, right, do you know how long it took me to like scout out that place? And she's like, well, it took me about 30 seconds to bust in there, which Pam was immediately like, well, give me my cut. Because for her, she's trying to build something, but for Smurf, it's like, that's bull. Like, everything is shit. There's no building anything. And just Pam was like, all right, give me my cut, finder's fee. Cool. You get your shit, get out. You know? And so it's that self-destructive nature that Smurf kind of has. She's in a very self-destructive move, which, once again, it's not just Pope. Like, even Darren's got some of that vibe. You know, he's vibing that right now, a little bit of that self-destructive behavior. But she's asking Jake to take her and the kids to Ocean Slide, which there's also that whole thing with Pope, like, stabbing himself in the hand with the knife, and it's like, and at first, like, Smurf is like, he'll get tired, he'll stop the moment he hurts himself, and then eventually she has to take the knife from him. Like, once again, she's so focused on everything else, not really. Once again, your daughter even suggested, you need to give Andrew something else, something more, and you just aren't. But maybe, like, she's taking Pam's thoughts of, like, building something. Maybe this is where she gets the idea to build the family business that she eventually builds. You know, I mean, obviously moving to Oceanside and everything. So, we'll see. Once again, how we get to you willing to leave Pam everything and not your kids. To be fair, just, like, I guess because your kids were always, like, backsliding and thinking they knew better than you, and it's just like maybe that was her way to kind of get back at them because it's like, right, you guys never appreciate what I did for you. Like, I've always taken care of you, and what have you always done? You backslide. Some of you even stole from me. So maybe that's it. Once again, maybe there's just something deeper with the whole Pam thing that we just haven't gotten to storyline wise that made her decide to give her, you know, everything. We'll ultimately have to wait and see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.